I bought the house because it was cheap. It was a two-story Victorian built on the edge of town. The real estate agent told me it had been empty for 10 years. She said the previous owner died in his sleep. I did not care about the history. I only cared about the price. I moved in on a Friday. The first 2 nights were quiet. The house was large and drafty, but it felt normal. I spent the weekend painting the living room and unpacking boxes. The trouble began on Monday night. I was sitting in the living room reading a book. It was late. The house was silent. I looked up toward the hallway that led to the kitchen. The hallway was empty, but the air looked different. It looked thick. There was a shadow on the wall that did not match the furniture. It looked like the shadow of a person standing very still. I watched the shadow. I waited for it to move. It remained perfectly still. I told myself it was just a trick of the lamplight. I turned the page of my book and tried to ignore it. When I looked up again 10 minutes later, the shadow was gone. I went to bed at midnight. My bedroom is on the 2nd floor at the end of the hall. I closed my door and turned off the light. I fell asleep quickly. I woke up at 3 in the morning. I did not know why I woke up. The room was dark. The house was silent. But I had a feeling that I was not alone. I rolled over and looked at the bedroom door. I always close my door until it clicks shut. I'm very careful about this. But now the door was open. It was wide open. Beyond the door, the hallway was pitch black. I lay in bed and stared into the darkness. I expected to see someone standing there. I expected to see a burglar, but there was nothing, just the empty black space of the hallway. I got out of bed. I walked to the door. I looked left toward the stairs. I looked right toward the bathroom. The hall was empty. I closed the door again. I locked it this time. I went back to sleep. The next morning, I checked the lock. It worked perfectly. There was no way the wind could have opened it. That night, I decided to leave the hallway light on. I wanted to see clearly if I woke up again. I went to sleep at 11. I woke up again at exactly 3 in the morning. I did not move my body. I only opened my eyes. The bedroom door was open again. The lock was still engaged, but the door was standing wide open. The light from the hallway spilled into my room. It cast a long rectangle of yellow light across the floor. In the middle of that light, there was a shadow. It was the shadow of a pair of feet. Someone was standing in the hallway, just out of sight, right next to my door frame. I stopped breathing. I lay perfectly still under the covers. My heart was beating hard against my chest. I watched the shadow of the feet. They did not move. Whoever it was, they were just standing there, waiting. I wanted to call out. I wanted to ask who was there, but my voice would not work. I was paralyzed by a heavy, cold fear. I watched the shadow for an hour. It never shifted. It never walked away. When the sun began to rise, the hallway light seemed to dim. I blinked my eyes. When I opened them, the shadow was gone. I got up and checked the hall. Empty. I called a locksmith that afternoon. I had him install a deadbolt on my bedroom door. He looked at me strangely, but he did the work. I felt safer that night. I locked the handle. I locked the deadbolt. I pushed a heavy chair in front of the door. I went to sleep. I woke up at 3 in the morning. The chair was back in the corner of the room. The deadbolt was unlocked. The door was wide open. But this time, the hallway light was off. The darkness was absolute. I sat up in bed. I reached for the lamp on my nightstand. I turned it on. The sudden light hurt my eyes. I squinted. Standing in the doorway was a woman. She was facing away from me. She was looking into the dark hallway. She was wearing a gray dress that looked very old. Her hair was gray and tied back in a bun. She stood perfectly still. She looked like a statue. I could not speak. I could not reach for my phone. I just stared at her back. Then she began to turn. She turned very slowly. It was not a natural movement. Her feet did not lift from the floor. Her entire body rotated smoothly, like she was on a spinning plate. I saw her profile. Her skin was pale and dusty. Her eyes were closed. She continued to turn until she was facing me. She did not open her eyes. She did not raise her hands. She just stood there in the doorway, facing my bed. Then she began to walk. She did not walk like a living person. She did not bob up and down. She glided. She moved toward the foot of my bed. I pressed my back against the headboard. I pulled the blanket up to my chest. She stopped at the foot of the bed. She stood there for a long time. The room was so quiet I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. Then she opened her eyes. There were no pupils. Her eyes were entirely white. They looked like clouded glass. She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. Instead, a cold wind blew through the room. The lamp on my nightstand flickered. I watched her lips move. She was repeating the same phrase over and over. I could not hear it, but I could read her lips. She was saying, "Get out, get out, get out." The lamp flickered one last time and went out. The room was plunged into darkness. I screamed. I scrambled out of bed. I ran blindly toward the door. I expected to run into her. I expected to feel her cold hands grab me, but I felt nothing. I ran through the empty doorway. I ran down the stairs. I ran out the front door into the street. I sat in my car until the sun came up. I was shivering. I was terrified. I went back inside in the daylight. The house felt heavy. The air felt cold, even though the heating was on. I went upstairs to pack a bag. I could not stay there another night. I walked into the bedroom. The chair was where I had left it. The bed was messy. I opened the closet to get my suitcase. The woman was standing inside the closet. She was facing the back wall. Her head was pressed against the plaster. Her hands were at her sides. I froze. I could not move my legs. She began to turn around again, that same slow, smooth rotation. I did not wait to see her face this time. I turned and ran. I left my clothes. I left my furniture. I left everything. I drove to a motel. I stayed there for a week. I put the house back on the market yesterday. I told the agent I was transferred for work. I did not tell her about the door. I did not tell her about the woman. But I think something followed me. I'm in a new apartment now. It's a modern building. It has secure locks. Last night, I woke up at 3 in the morning. My bedroom door was open, and there was a shadow on the floor. It was not the shadow of feet this time. It was the shadow of a hand with long, thin fingers. It was reaching around the door frame. I'm sitting in the living room now. It's morning. I'm drinking coffee. I'm trying to ignore the corner of the room. There's a woman standing there. She's facing the wall. She's wearing a gray dress. She hasn't moved for 3 hours, but I can see her shoulders moving. She's taking deep breaths, and she's slowly starting to turn around.